Hello and happy Tour Tuesday, everybody. It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining. We've got a great crowd today. It was warmer today than I think anybody expected, but the sun has finally shone through, and we're definitely feeling like spring. And hopefully, you guys are starting to think about, if you haven't already, started thinking about your summer bus trips. And that's why we're here today. I'm Sandy Borowski. I am your host for today and the owner of Starr Tours. I'm so thrilled that you're here. I see a few faces that I know. We have two presenters for you today. I believe that you will recognize them. Our first presenter is Mr. Gene Gray. Wave, Gene. There he
Hi.
is. Famous Gene Gray. We'll be talking about two tours. Riding the Rails and Frank Lloyd Wright and Flight 93. And then we have also the famous Penny Rudolph. Say hi, Penny. There she
Hi.
is, which I know you recognize, Penny. And Penny is going to talk about two trips geared for solo travelers. So we have a lot to get to today. For those of you that just joined, we were just finishing up a little side chat. Penny just returned yesterday, last night. So thank you, Penny, for unpacking today and preparing for this Tour Tuesday. Penny just got back with 53
Yes.
people on the Kentucky Derby trip, which had two exciting things happen. One was a couple that won $24,000. They bet the trifecta. They bet $50 on a trifecta, and they won $24,000, which was awesome. And then there was a gentleman also on the tour who used to play for the Brooklyn Dodgers. And when we visited the Louisville Slugger Museum, he didn't even know this in advance, but he found a plaque with his name on the wall because he used to use Louisville Slugger bats. And the recipe for the bat was there as well as his plaque, and he was flabbergasted, to say the least, that he was kind of honored at the Louisville Slugger Museum, which he did not even know about until he went on a Starr trip. So, hey, maybe you're going to be honored somewhere that you don't know about. So if you travel with us, make sure you look around because your name could be anywhere. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to share my screen with you. All right. Like I said, this is our Tour Tuesday, and we're going to be starting with a tour called Riding the Rails, featuring Western Maryland Railroad and the Potomac Eagle Scenic Railroad. We offered a trip similar to this a few years ago, so it's been a while, and we're glad to have it back. And it's being offered this August. It's a four-day, three-night trip. You can see there's lots of meals: breakfast every morning, lunch 2 of the days, and dinner all 3 nights, which is really great. And the prices you can see there, $13.99 per person based on double occupancy, and $16.99 per person if you have a room all by yourself. So I am going to turn this over to Gene. Gene, so remind me, you escorted this trip in the past?
I did a different one, the Railroads of West Virginia, but
Got
this is
it.
brand new. I don't think it's been done before by Starr. This
Ah,
exact trip,
right, this
but
exact trip. I think we've
yeah,
done it in different pieces on different tours, and we just built this
right,
one. So you're right.
right,
You are right.
right.
So why don't you take us through the itinerary and what we can expect on this trip?
Okay, great. Well, both of these trips, the Cumberland, the rail riding the rails and the Frank Lloyd Wright are connected because they're connected by the National Road or the Cumberland Road, which goes from basically, which later became the National Road that goes from New York all the way to Los Angeles. Another cross country trip, Sandy? I'm not sure.
You tell
Um,
me.
yeah, we can. There's a lot on this road. Uh, the National Road used to be Braddock's Road. General Braddock would take his army out there with George Washington, and George Washington would survey the area, and he'd actually be walking with or riding with Braddock along the road back in the 1750s. But the Cumberland Road started being built and created in the 1811 to 1837, and it's 620 miles. The original road was 620 miles until it connected with the whole national road, which is now from sea to shining sea. So anyway, of course, the original Cumberland Road was all dirt, and today, of course, it's all for the cars.
And filled with potholes, no doubt, but that's a
Well,
separate.
yeah, well, we'll find that out eventually. Um, okay, so a lot of the national road goes through Pittsburgh area, the Somerset area, and you'll be playing around on the national road on the Frank Lloyd Wright Trail. On day one, we are going to it's the trip out west, and then we go into our hotel at night, and then we go for dinner at the Puccini restaurant. That now every one of the places that we go into is extremely historic. That's my answering machine. Please forgive me in the back. I don't know if you hear it or not, but anyway, the Puccini restaurant used to be a Civil War hospital during in 1864. There was a battle in this area that took place adjacent to the property, and the South tried to attack the North to take over the area and burn down the area, but the North was able to beat them back. However, all the injured, both the North and the South, were being taken care of in the old Puccini restaurant. Just very briefly, in 1997, it had changed hands many times over the years. A guy named Ed Mason purchased the property and began Uncle Tucker's wood-fired pizza. And that's what we're going to be eating for dinner that night. And there's also another restaurant in there as well. All right, so I think that's all for day two. It's hard for me to read that of the day one, so we'll move on to day two. And after a fine breakfast at the hotel, and we're staying at the Fairfield Inn and Suites in Cumberland, Maryland, we're going to be going to the Ber Chaim Temple. It's a Jewish temple, and we're going to be taking a tour of the temple. It's an extremely historic temple, the oldest continually operated synagogue in Maryland, and the sixth oldest in the United States. It started in 1853 with 12 Jewish families, and now it's grown to 80 Jewish families. Not big, but we're going to be going there. And what's really nice about this area in Cumberland is we'll also be going to a Lutheran church, and the Lutheran church, while the second Lutheran church was being torn down so that the new church, the third one, would be built in its same spot, the Ber Chaim Temple invited and welcomed all the Lutheran churchgoers to worship in this synagogue. So everybody's together out there, and I know we're going to feel that as well. It should be beautiful. We're going to also have the opportunity to taste authentic Jewish holiday. There they are. Dessert. There they are. I'm glad I had dinner. I'm not hungry. Okay, and after that, we're heading towards the Western Scenic Railroad, Maryland Scenic Railroad, one of the two railroads that Sandy mentioned we're going to. This one operated from 1852 to 1983. Closed down. It actually was primarily a coal hauling and freight railroad line. Closed down, and then in 1981, they started doing excursions from Cumberland to Frostburg, and that's what we're going to be doing, a one-way trip to Frostburg, and we're going to go around what's called exciting Hell's Tedders, curve. And in order for the railroad to go up the mountain in this beautiful scenic area, it has to go around this real huge curve, which is a photo op, an exemplary photo op. As I said, it was designed to ease steeply sloping grades, lots of hills, ease it around the hills and up the mountain. The next place we're going to after that, that's a one-way trip, and we get off in Frostburg, and right next door is the Thrasher Carriage Museum. And there'll be costume docents who will be talking to us and showing us the different items in there, like horse-drawn vehicles, from a milkman to a wealthy person, pleasure vehicles from way back. We're dating back into the 1800s on this, folks. Funeral wagons, sleighs, carts. And so we'll be able to listen to the docents, browse, and shop in the gift shop. Should be really great. Then we go off to the Spruce Forest Artisan Village, and that is incredible. This is this, as I said, dates back to the 1800s as well. It's an artisan village. You're going to actually be able to go in and speak to the artisans and watch them create their masterpieces. They showcase their work, and we can interact with them. Artists will share their stories, and over 60,000 people arrive here to speak to the artists each year. There's also a Miller House Peace Center in there that you might want to go see, which has to do with the Amish from 200 years ago, Amish and Mennonites. There's also the Stanton's Mill, which was built in 1797, that still operates today. Of course, it's been updated up, but it still operates like it did back then. And then we have lunch on your own at the Penn Alps restaurant, which is part of the Artisan. So we have a couple of hours there for lunch and to peruse and just to enjoy. There's also a one-room schoolhouse. We teachers cannot forget the one-room schoolhouse either. And then we go to the Laval Tollgate House. Still day 2. We're still moving here. And this is a tollgate house, of course, back in the day, before Easy Pass. They had a person who would live in that house or stay in that house 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours. And whenever a vehicle came up, they would get out of the toll house, move the gate so that collect the fee, of course, move the gate. In other words, turn the pike. That's where turnpike came from. And then the car can go on its merry way. So this is an 1836 structure with 7-sided. So it's a heptagon. And it's really a wonderful, beautiful place to look inside and see what it is. It's on the National Registry of Historic Places as of 1971, Laval Tollgate House. And then we go to St. Paul's Lutheran Church that I alluded to earlier. This was the very first church in the area, built in 1794. And at that time, this area was all German. They spoke only German at the services. In fact, for the first 10 years until 1804, they only spoke German at the services, and English started to be introduced in 1804. They are farmers out there, and and also the way the church worked back there, they had one pastor who would go from church to church. He'd go as far away, like 50 miles away on some Sundays to give his sermon and lead the service. And so that would leave the St. Paul's Lutheran Church without a pastor. So about every 10 weeks, they'd have a service. And every 10 weeks, maybe they do baptisms or marriages. But you had to get that in there and know when the pastor was coming back. So that's the way it was. The pastors were few and far between. The first church got very old and dilapidated and was torn down eventually. And the second church was built in a different location, but that wasn't built very sturdily. So a third church, so that was torn down. And when that was torn down, when that second church was torn down, that's when the congregation moved to the synagogue in order to do their services. So that's the Beth Hayim synagogue. And then, so this new church, the third church, has been around since 1894. July 1st, 1894, it actually opened, and we're going to get to see that. Not only do we get to see that, but we're going to be treated to a delicious dinner there. We're having an authentic German dinner, hence the history. And so we'll be eating in the Lutheran church as well for dinner. As if that wasn't enough, we're not yet going back to the hotel.
This day is not done yet.
Yeah, this day is still going. We're going to be going to the Gordon Roberts house, which is right nearby. And it was built in 1867 by Josiah Hans Gordon, who was a prominent attorney in Cumberland and lived his full life there. The house was eventually sold to the Roberts family. They were the second and final family to live there. And the Roberts family, he was an engineer and he worked on the railroads. So all his livelong day, actually, I must add. And he was also an accomplished violinist, Mr. Roberts. It wasn't the Mr. Roberts from Pittsburgh, but it was a different Mr. Roberts. He didn't wear sweaters.
That's Mr. Rogers, Gene.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah, I was close. Yeah, thank you.
Close.
Yeah, close.
Love it. Close.
Yeah. Anyway, the Roberts family was very into music, and his home was the scene of many brilliant and festive occasions, and we'll be able to visit that estate and see that. So then we go back and we rest for the evening. And on day 3, sorry.
We need a rest after that long day.
Very deserved rest. Historic Ridgedale Farm is first thing the next morning. And it was owned by George W. Washington, not the George Washington, but he was the son of Edward Washington, who was a descendant of the George Washington's great-grandfather, Reverend Lawrence Washington. So if you got all that, I had to reread it 3 times. In other words, somewhere down the line, George Washington had is a descendant of this George W. Washington. And he was alive from 1809 to 1876. He was married, and then the couple moved to this area and they built themselves a log house, which and then as they continue to prosper, selling different kinds of farm products and livestock. They added the farm and constructed the main house in 1835. They had 11 children, and they raised beef, cattle, sheep, and pigs, and had horses and soybeans, oats, and wheat, and so they continued to prosper. After George Washington's death in 1876, his son took it over, and sold a lot of acreage, but we still have 321 of the 700 original acres still there. So it is now actually, this house is now currently being lived in by the Shaws, Carol and Mike Shaw. And from time to time, they step aside and allow groups to go in upon request. So we're going to be very fortunate to be able
Wow.
to see that house.
Don't open
It,
any closets.
yeah, so yeah, in the closets or the pantry, you never know. And then we have our second railroad, which is the Potomac Eagle Scenic Railroad. And this history is basically from 1989. It was thought about by the Romney Business and Professional Organization in Cumberland, and they got all the permission they needed. And in 1991, the very first Potomac Eagle pulled out of Romney Station in this area for the first. It's a 6 miles. No, I'm sorry. Let me say this. Also, coincidentally, at the time in 1991, when the first train pulled out, they just came across a bald eagles sanctuary naturally growing in the area 6 miles from the train's beginning when you board. And so there's an excellent chance that we're going to see bald eagles in their environment in this. As the information I researched said, sometimes passengers see one eagle, and then other trips they will have a chance to see several. It's not a guarantee, but it's a great odds. We're talking about odds again, Penny. It's a great odds that the passengers will see at least one. So that's the Potomac Eagle Scenic Railroad. That's a round trip railroad trip. And also, I believe we have lunch on there too. We do. We have lunch on that trip as well, on the railroad. And then we go to the Town Hill Bed and Breakfast after that, which is in the scenic mountains of Western Maryland, right on the Potomac River. And the scenery is so gorgeous. It's known as the beauty spot of Maryland. We're going to be having a tour of the bed and breakfast. We're going to be having dinner, and we'll be seeing a musical show called Trivial Broadway. So that will be a good day to end that. After that show, we do go back to the hotel for a rest.
Really quickly, Jean, mentioned here on day 2, which I forgot to also mention, or I'm not sure if you have it in your paperwork, we are going to meet a historical reenactor, Eleanor Roosevelt, while we're
Yeah.
at the Gordon Roberts house.
Oh, okay. I don't have that on my paperwork. Okay, great,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So there will be a historical reenact, kind of like an entertainment, activity after dinner. So we'll be at the house and we'll have a talk and interaction with a historical interpreter.
That's at the
That will be
house.
at the Gordon Roberts house. Exactly.
Great. Well, that's a great segue into at the Town Hill Bed and Breakfast where we're having our dinner that night. We're going to get an historical talk from Rebecca Boone, wife of Daniel Boone. So that should be really fascinating.
Awesome. Awesome.
So I guess we have 2 historical talks.
Yeah, we did. We had one on there, but not the second one on the slide. Okay, good.
Great.
Now, I
Great.
don't have Rebecca Boone in my paperwork, so it's possible that we change Rebecca to Eleanor. So I'm thinking that we're doing Eleanor instead of Rebecca.
Okay. Well,
That's
it is. We will find that out.
we'll find that out.
Okay, great. All right, day 4, we get up and we go to this really neat place called the Evergreen Heritage Center. And this will conclude the trip, but we have 3 to 4 hours here. It was settled in 1780 by Edward Grimes, who originally bought this 54 acres, and he operated the first sawmill from here. And in 1869, the property was acquired by the Trimble family and became the area's largest farm, over 1,100 acres, and was given the name Evergreen for the fledgling, of course, evergreen trees planted there. And it's really going to be another wonderful trip. Oh, it's here at the Evergreen that we're going to do Rebecca Boone. But you said you're going to probably.
Do I have my, I'm just looking at my notes on
I
that.
apologize for that, folks.
Here you can read it. I can't read this fast, but they probably do have a historical interpreter here as well.
Okay.
Um,
All right. So we're going to get a tour of the farmhouse museum, and lunch also is included at the Evergreen Heritage Center, and then we're on our way, and that will conclude day 4.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. We had a question, what are the dates for this trip? So I'll go back to the beginning. The date is August 8th through 11th. And if you want to screenshot that information, it's right there for you. Now, there is, due to the nature of this trip, there is a fair amount of walking. And in some of these historical buildings, there are stairs, not elevators. So consider that when you're, thinking about going on this trip. We do make it with senior citizens in mind. So we will try not to make it too strenuous, but there is definitely some walking that is required on this trip. So just to recap, this trip is going to be escorted by Mr. Gene Gray, the one and
Yeah.
only.
Yeah.
We already have 33 people booked on this trip. We have about 20 seats left. So if this is something of interest to you, she's raising her hand, go ahead and you can book it online. You can book it tomorrow, whatever works for you. So we're super excited about this trip. It is, those middle days are very busy with lots of things to do. If you're a history lover, this is definitely the trip for you. And just beautiful scenery as well. And trains, beautiful scenery, history, food. I think it checks all the boxes, right, Jean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Does
And
anybody have questions about this trip before we move on? All right, we're moving on. Awesome. Great, great, great. All right, the next trip we're going to talk about is one of Jean's favorites. I love this trip too. I loved my visit here. Frank Lloyd Wright and Flight 93. We are offering one date, July 19th through 21st, 3 days, 2 nights, 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, 2 dinners. Reasonably priced at $779 per person based on 2 people in a room, and $919 per person based on single occupancy. So I will let Jean take it away.
okay. By 3:00, 3:15, after picking everybody up, it's a trip to Somerset, PA, which is a suburb of Pittsburgh area. So we are traveling a little bit longer for this one than the Riding the Rails Western, which is a couple of hours away, as opposed to this is pretty much a 6.5 hour trip. Our first stop is one of an absolutely gorgeous house by Frank Lloyd Wright. Frank Lloyd Wright is an American icon architect who almost never made it big, even when he was a well-known architect. He never handled money well, and was always broke until the very end. He was born on June 8th, if that's anybody's birthday, 1867, and died in 1959. At 18, he went to an architect school. Actually worked for the University of Wisconsin in the architect department, engineering, and came out of it with a love of architecture. and he scrounged around. He got divorced from his first wife. His second wife and kids were tragically killed in a fire, unfortunately. And his third wife, Olga, he met in Europe, and and she really helped him get disciplined as a person. So now Frank Lloyd Wright could focus on what was important in his work. And it was around this time in 1840 that the Museum of Modern Art in New York City did an exhibition on some of Frank Lloyd Wright's architectural homes. And we had done homes when what they call it, commissioning a home. So when people want to have him build a home, they hire him, pay him, and he builds a home for them. It's just another person building a home for another person. No one knew it was going to be famous or whatever, but they just lived in them. And Frank Lloyd Wright, so his name was known as a good architect, but he wasn't famous, if you know what I mean, until now when the Museum of Modern Art in New York did an exhibition of his work. And that sparked in 1943, he was asked to design the Guggenheim Museum in New York to house the Solomon Guggenheim collection of paintings. And that was completed in 1959, just before his death. And a few years, in 1935, he was commissioned to build Falling Water, which was his masterpiece. So, that's a little basic background on Frank Lloyd Wright. And one of the homes he was commissioned for by a family known as the Hagen family was Kentucknob. And that's our first stop in the afternoon. And that's what it looks like there. It's actually a Unisonian home, which means it's a very inexpensive home, very livable home. His Unisonian homes were built primarily in 1929 and early 1930s at the height of the I'm stuck with famine, recession, the recession. And so money was not available. So Frank Lloyd Wright built these homes. Kentucknob is 2,200 square feet. Nice size, but not tremendous. And it's just there for Unisonian means for one person, one family. Enjoy your life and enjoy it. And they certainly do. It's constructed of sandstone and red cypress from North Carolina. And what's unique about his houses is it blends in with the scenery. It blends in with the mountains. You don't see the mountain there, but it's on a mountain. And so on the other side of the house, you walk to the top of the mountain. The other side of the house is really low to the ground. And you walk to the other side of that mountain and you have a beautiful overlook of the beautiful Laurel Highlands. It's just magnificent. So today, the Palumbo family owns the house. They don't live there anymore, but they still own it. And here's a quote that I found that from Frank Lloyd Wright. No house should ever be on any hill or on anything. It should be of the hill, belonging to it. So hill and house could live together, each the happier for the other. Frank Lloyd Wright. So that's basically his philosophy there. We're on day 2. Yeah. Now we stayed
Well, we're still on day 1. I just saw this picture from Eaton Park.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Eaton Park is a wonderful restaurant, quick service, wonderful restaurant, wonderful food, nice salad bar. You'll love it. So
yeah.
And that's also included in the trip as well.
Yeah, and we're staying at a very nice Hampton Inn in Somerset.
Somerset, exactly. Yep. Okay, so our next visit is to Shanksville, PA. This is day 2, and it's so somber. This is a must-see. This and also the 9/11 Museum in New York City are must-sees, I must say. Um, we The Flight 93 memorial is beyond words. It's so beautifully done. There's three parts to it. One piece is the upper level, which includes the visitor center and the overlook, and it's structured in such a way that you actually could follow the flight of Flight 93, United Flight 93, as it crashed into the field, and you see where it crashed. They have a big boulder memorializing that spot way down below. And then the museum is a must-see as well. And it has a wonderful gift shop as well. So the second part is called the Wall of Honor. And that has the names of every one of the passengers that perished in that unfortunate situation. Of course, this was all part of September 11th, 2001. And that wall just gives you goosebumps as you walk all along it. And you can take pictures of the names, and it's wonderful. And the newest piece that was opened up 2 years ago is called the Tower of Voices. And you walk up to this tower, and if the wind's blowing, it will ring and chime in such a way that gives you goosebumps, just, to honor those that perished. If the wind is not blowing, they have a QR code that you put your phone onto, and the chimes will go onto your phone, and you can still hear what's going on. I have never heard the wind blowing, so I have that on my phone. um, we then, oh, one more thing about the September 11th. That one of the most famous people, the Flight 93 was when Todd Beamer, who's a New Jersey native right here in Cranberry, New Jersey, led a group of passengers to the cockpit yelling the phrase, "Let's roll." He had been talking to his wife, found out what was going on, told her he loved her, and he went to the cockpit, and they jammed it open, and they got to the terrorists and crashed it into Shanksville instead of a possible White House or wherever it was going. It was aiming towards what it was turned towards Washington, D.C. So that's Todd Beamer, and he's there in memorial along with the other 43 people that perished on that flight. We have a delicious lunch at the Coal Miners Cafe. I love the servers there. You order your lunch, and they serve you with a smile, and they call you hun, and they're really, they're adorable. So you'll really enjoy your lunch at the Coal Miners Cafe before we travel to the Flight 93 Memorial Chapel. This is not part of the official government 93, Flight 93 Memorial that I described earlier. This is something completely different. Reverend Alphonse Mascherino. Mascherino's his last name. He's a reverend. He wanted to do something badly for the first anniversary of the disaster. So he was taught he had a year from September 11th, 01 to September 11th, 02. And he wanted to do his own memorial. He came across an abandoned chapel that he saw a for sale sign, and that's where we're going. It's a tiny building, and it was built in 1902, but it's magnificent. It was a Lutheran church, so the chips are again tied together. He wanted to honor faith, and that was his goal. With only $300 to start, he collected coins from people, going from door to door. he asked for photos that people might have had, any memorabilia that people had. Whenever he'd save about $50, he'd drive to the local 84 lumber store, and he'd hand them a list of things that he needed for $50. Well, he kept going back and forth, $50 at a time, and a few people at the 84 lumber store started to get a little curious about what he was doing, and they snuck out to the chapel to see what he was doing, and they were so impressed that the store kicked in $23,000 for supplies. And later, 84 Lumber decided to take over the whole project and turned it into 150,000 renovation project, getting the work done 10 days before the September 11th, 2002 anniversary. It was incredible.
I just thought it was such a special place. Nobody knows about this place. And
No,
if you weren't on this tour, you wouldn't even know to go here. And there's so much, so many mementos, and things that tie back to this event. And it's very special. Plus there's the memorial. I may steal your thunder, but there's the flight attendant memorial as well, right adjacent to it.
yeah, that's right. They have a beautiful one outside. I wasn't really going to talk about the outside, but thanks for mentioning that. And First Officer Leroy Homer Jr., who perished in the September 11th flight 93, his mom donated a model airplane that he built when he was 11 years old, and it just happened to be a United Airlines airplane.
Wow.
And they donated it to the chapel, and they have it behind glass, and it's absolutely, it gives you the chills, how life turns out. So that's a very happy story. You'll get a very nice talk for some very knowledgeable people. You sit in chairs, see the talk, and then you can walk around the chapel, walk outside. As Sandy said, there's a lot more to see out there. And as if that's not enough, we're moving on again, another full day, to Q Creek Mine Rescue. And this just took place less than a year after 9/11 in the same area. It's only like 5 miles from where Flight 93 went down. And on July 24th of 2002, miners in this creek were hammering through a wall. They had terrible maps. In fact, the map was not updated, and had an old map, and they didn't realize they were hammering into like a pond. And the pond filled with water, 75 gallons of water went rushing through the mine. And the rescue effort took 5 days, from July 24th to 28th, and they managed to get everybody out safe. They had 18 in there. 9 escaped on their own. When they heard something going on, they ran out of there as fast as they can. And then the other 9 were actually stuck down there with just enough space to breathe, thank goodness, and nobody died. It was just an incredible experience. You go there, you sit in this auditorium, and these wonderful people, actually they were eyewitnesses of the situation. They lived this, and they're there. They tell us their experiences working as a rescue worker in 2002, and they show you a wonderful slideshow that really makes it pretty clear about what happened. It's a great thing. Then you go upstairs, there's a little museum and a gift shop, and then they have the grounds outside where they have the statue of a miner to honor miners everywhere, and that's the statue you see in the bottom right corner as you enter the place. So that's Q Creek. It's absolutely fabulous. And then we have a delicious dinner buffet at the Oakhurst Grill. They have everything on that buffet, and that is delicious. So if you like buffets, that's a delicious. guaranteed not to gain a pound. Okay. Then the next day is the creme de la creme. The main, everything else here is great, is fabulous. The Flight 93 Museum, everything, and the museum site. But the falling water is the masterpiece of Frank Lloyd Wright. It was started in 1935. It was commissioned by the Kaufman family, who were the only ones to live there. In fact, their son gave it up in 2004, I believe. And since then, it's been out, people can now go and visit. It's actually built above a falling waterfall. It's part of the scenery. It's Frank Lloyd Wright's main architectural genius. The house cost 155,000, which includes Frank Lloyd Wright's $8,000 for his architectural fees. So he really wasn't. I guess in the 1940s and 50s, $8,000 was a lot of money, but I don't think that's enough. And before the Kaufmans moved in, they had the Kaufmans, their own engineers came and said, this design is not sound. These, the cantilevered balconies are going to fall on one another. There's nothing holding them up. And Frank Lloyd Wright said, nope, I'm sticking to my design, which he did. But in the 1990s, people put steel supports underneath them anyway, so that nothing could happen when they allowed tours to come in, just in case. So in 2000, Falling Water was named the building of the 20th century, an unsigned, which is a top 10 poll. And that's absolutely beautiful. You're actually one of the lucky ones to get a tour inside the building. People have to, I've noticed people, they try to get in on the day of to get this tour, and they're all sold out. You can't do it. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and you walk up different levels. It's of the house, and it's absolutely fantastic.
That it is. That it is. And while we're there, we have a box lunch at the cafe too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a box lunch afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jean. Great description. Great description. This trip, again, departs on July 19th for 3 days. The tour director is Roseanne Iannotti, one of our terrific tour directors, and we've got 15 people booked. So we still do have room for about 30 plus people. I would, 15 people is a great start. We're in May, so we've got a couple months before this trip departs, and it's timed really well for the summer. This is a great place to travel to. I loved all my visits, especially to that Flight 93 Memorial and Visitor Center. Just, when you can live through a situation like that and then see it memorialized right before your very eyes, it's super impactful. So, does anybody have any questions about the Frank Lloyd Wright trip? Awesome. Thank you so much, Jean. I really appreciate it. You did your homework. You're quite the history buff and storyteller. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
We are going to move on, and I would love to invite Penny Rudolph to speak. We're going to first start to talk about our solo travel experience called Maryland Shores. And of course, this is so we had a quick question from our last trip. Are singles or solo travelers welcome? Let me say this loud and proud. Singles and solo travelers, whatever you call yourselves, are welcome on every single one of our trips. Absolutely every single one of our trips, which is a great segue into talking about this tour. Anybody is welcome to come on any of our trips. You don't have to be a solo traveler to come on our solo traveler trips. But on this trip, and the other solo trips that we kind of promote as solo travelers, you'll likely find that the majority of people are traveling by themselves. And you know, you're never alone when you travel with Starr. So you may come by yourself, but once you get on board, you become part of a group and you'll meet instant friends. And years later, you'll be having brunch with them, right, Jean?
Absolutely.
So yes, an answer to your question, every solos are invited on every trip, but we've really geared these trips that we're going to talk about soon just to solo travelers. And don't forget about our website that has a page geared specifically to solo travelers. So, Penny, why don't you take us through this wonderful trip to Maryland Shores? It starts on July 30th and ends on August 1st. So it's a short 3-day, 2-night trip. It's got 5 meals included. And if you want to come with a friend or a spouse, 819 per person based on double occupancy, and then $9.99 per person for if you want your room all to yourself. And we welcome you to come whatever way you'd like. Take it
Okay.
away.
All right. So this is a wonderful tour. If you love being around the water, there's something that the water makes you feel so good. So here we are at the Chesapeake, along the Chesapeake, and we travel to the beautiful town of St. Michael's, charming town. And there we will go to the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. On the first picture, you actually saw a picture of the lighthouse, one of the lighthouses. It's on the museum property. And you can actually go and tour that lighthouse, go inside, walk around it. And to the right of it, that's one of their boathouses where they have many different examples of the kinds of boats that they use throughout the history of the area. St. Michael's is known as the town that fooled the British. During the War of 1812, when the British came up to Chesapeake, the people from the town hung lanterns in the trees. So when the British fired their cannons, they overshot the town. So the town was saved. So we will have lunch on Onan St. Michael's. It's about a 1.5 block walk from the Maritime Museum. Lots of restaurants, cute little town, very comfortable, cozy, good seafood. If you like seafood, they definitely have good seafood there. After our lunch, we will go on a cruise, the Patriot, and we will have the narrated history aboard this. And you can sit inside, you can sit outside. It's it's about an 1.5 hour ride. And then you will have free time again on your own after you get off the boat. And the boat is docked right at the Maritime Museum. And it's a short walk into town. You'll have free time. And at the end of the day, after you do some of your shopping and browsing around, we'll be able to move on, get on to the coach. You can see some of the people by the waterfront and enjoying the beautiful weather, the beautiful scenery that we have there.
I'll have a little sidebar. This used to be a day trip, and it was so popular, people said, we want to stay longer, we want to stay longer. So that's why we incorporated it into a multi-day trip. So people really love St. Michael's.
Yes, it is a great trip. All right, from there, we're going to travel to Salisbury, Maryland, conveniently located, and we'll have dinner at the Brew River Seafood House before checking into the lovely Hampton Inn for 2 overnights in Salisbury, Maryland. You can see the restaurant down at the bottom, see a nice little picture of the hotel, and it's a real nice, cozy, comfy place. Hampton Inn is part of the Hilton brand, and we use that often on our tours, and it's really nice. You'll enjoy that. After breakfast, we'll go down to Crisfield, Maryland, which is south. And that is like the soft shell crab capital of the world, certainly of the United States. They actually have lots of their barns where they come and they pick the crabs, take all the meat out of the crabs. And while we're there, we will visit the Millard Tawes Museum. And this museum traces the history of the lower shoreline with exhibits on the beginning of the Chesapeake Bay, the influence of the Native Americans on the early colonists, how the seafood is harvested and how it's processed, and the history of the town and the evolution of the truly American art form, the decoy carving and painting. They're really known for their beautiful decoy ducks. There's lots of duck hunting clubs down there, and they'll go out into the islands, and it's such as Island or Tangier Island, and they will go and do duck hunting. Great little place. And then from there, we will continue on, and we'll take a cruise to Smith Island, enjoy free time on own and lunch included. It's a nice little cruise out to Smith Island. You'll spend time, it's small, you'll have plenty of time to walk around, and then we'll cruise back to Crisfield, and we'll go back to our Hampton Inn. And there is a restaurant right next door, and a couple of little places you could go to with dinner on your own. It's something you really, really enjoy. Beautiful.
But you didn't mention the Smithfield Island cake, my favorite picture in this
Oh,
whole
there you go.
slide.
Right. And that's the state flag of Maryland, by the way, on that flag.
Yeah, I love a good
It's
Smith
like
Island
layer,
cake.
layer, layer, layer.
And
Yes,
you are getting a piece of this at the end of your lunch. So you may not need to do dinner on own after this lunch.
so the next morning after a nice breakfast at the hotel, we'll check out, and then we'll travel to the Salisbury University, and we'll have time to visit the Museum of Eastern Shore Culture. And you can see some of the beautiful decoy ducks that they have here, as well as, you know, all their history on their crabbing, their fishing, and the whole way of life down there. It's a really easy, laid back lifestyle. I actually have a cousin that retired. He and his wife retired and lived down there in Salisbury, and they just absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So after we go and travel the museum, we will have lunch included at Harrison Harbor Watch. You see the people, and not are they eating wonderful lunch, they are watching out at the water. They can see the boats, everything that's going on. I can see some of the yummy food that they have up here. Great sandwiches, fish sandwiches, and crab cakes, and a lovely, lovely dinner. You'll really like it, or rather a lovely lunch. And then we'll continue on. We'll head to Ocean City, and we're going to spend time on the boardwalk. Boardwalk's lots of fun. Ocean City's known for its beach. It has a really long beach, and we'll drop you off right along the beach and the boardwalk. You can walk on the boardwalk. You can have some of their great ice cream, their fries. You can walk out to the water, get your toes in the ocean, and it's a really wonderful way to end your tour, and then we will travel back home. So you have lots of things filled in. And again, if you'd like to be around the water, the ocean, the bay, this is a trip for you. And just to let you know, solo travelers, on my last tour, there were 7 solo travelers all by themselves. I have done, and it wasn't a solo traveler tour. And on one of my past Florida vacations, there were 17 solo travelers. It was not a solo travel. You meet each other, you get together, it's great. So don't hesitate.
Yeah, yep, you're right. Pam commented that she met a friend on a solo trip last year, and they're going on this trip together. I just love that. Oh, that makes me so happy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you have a great time. I know you will. This is a great trip with 2 boat rides. It's in the summertime, which is the time you want to be here. July 30th, you know, talk about this laid back way of life. You will definitely feel that here. We've got 18 people booked on this trip already. We would love to have more. There is still room. Martha Costa is going to be the tour director on this trip, and she's super excited about it, really looking forward to it. So for those of you that have gone on our Assateague Island boat cruise trip, Harrison's Harbor Watch is where we eat lunch on that trip, and then of course the free time at Ocean City's boardwalk. So a lot of pieces of this puzzle. This is kind of like the highlights of this area that we've put together for you on this trip. You know, Smith Island, St. Michael's, and Ocean City. It's like a trifecta, if you will, right, Pen?
It's excellent. It's excellent. And the food at Harrison's is, their fish sandwich, excellent,
Yeah,
excellent.
yeah, you're right. Any questions for Penny or me about this upcoming trip for solo travelers? Awesome. All right, you guys are good. You guys are good. We're moving on to our last and final trip. This is seafood and wildlife in Dorchester County, Maryland. These are day trip. It's 2-day trips, same itinerary, just different options. The July 10th trip picks up in Hamilton, Cherry Hill, and Deptford. And then the August 14th trip picks up in Hamilton, Neshaminy Mall, and Chester. The tour director for July 10th is Jane Peters Estes, and Penny is the tour director for the August 14th trip. So it does include lunch. It's $219 per person. Come by yourself or bring a friend, whatever you'd like. Penny, tell us about this trip.
Okay, so this is a great, again, if you like that calm, relaxing, beautiful scenery, see wildlife, being around the water, and if you like seafood, fresh local produce, because on this tour, we tell you, bring your coolers, packed with ice, because we're going to give you an opportunity to fill them up and take them back home. So we are going to travel down to Dorchester, Maryland, and we will pick up a guide and have a riding tour of the county area. We will then go for a buffet lunch, which is included at Old Salty's restaurant. Again, great buffet. You have a variety of choices, and I think you'll really enjoy that. After we have our buffet, we are going to the Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge Visitor Center, where we will learn about local wildlife that's there. We'll be able to hopefully see some of the wildlife, and we'll go through Blackwater's Wildlife Drive and look to spot some of the osprey you can see down on the bottom left there, some other wildlife, and a real nice, relaxing ride. Great place to just tour around and take in the gorgeous scenery. From there, we are going to head to the produce center, where we will be able to pick up local produce. And you can see some of the beautiful things that they have, jams and jellies and pies and cakes and all kinds of local produce. And then we go to Cool Ice and Seafood, and you will be able to pick up some great deals on seafood and pack them up on your ice. And if you need more ice, they will have it there, and you'll be able to take it home and maybe the next day have a great seafood, fresh produce dinner from Dorchester County in beautiful Maryland backwater wildlife area. It's a great trip. Come and join us.
That's so neat, right? Like we try to think of different things to offer you. And one of our partners showed us this tour, and I was like, yes, I love it. Bring your cooler, fill her up. Great buffet lunch, a day trip, something different. And I love it. So I hope you guys do too. Does anybody have any questions about that trip? All right. Well, don't forget there's 2 ways to book your trip. You can call Sandy or Samantha. You just call the number. One of us will pick up, either me, Sandy, Sandy Gallucci, or Samantha Kelly. Or, Lindy could pick up, Audrey could pick up. We want to help you. Or you can book online, and we welcome you to do that. Of course, stay connected with us on Facebook, Instagram. If you are thinking about traveling solo, or you are a solo traveler, we have a Facebook group just for you. So please join that Facebook group. Do not forget to join us for our next Tour Tuesday, June 4th. We're going to be talking about Ithaca, New York, waterfalls, women, and wine, right? Sounds fantastic. And then keeping on the W's, we're going to talk about Wellsboro, PA, cool dark skies program that we're offering, and then our Agua Canyon train tour program. So we're really excited about that. And it's time to pick our gift card winner. Our gift card winner for today, $25, is Claire Brady. So congratulations, Claire. I just saw like a fist bump or something there. So congratulations. We will put that $25 on your account. So next time you book your trip, it will be there for you. And I see Sandy Gallucci in person. Wave and say hi, Sandy. There she is. I know Samantha's on the call too, but I don't see her face. I want to thank you all so much for coming. A special, special thank you to Jean and Penny. Let's give them a round of applause. They are fantastic at what they do. They are
Thank
not
you.
only great tour directors, but they are great Tour Tuesday presenters. So thank you so much. I thank you all so much for coming tonight. It just means so much to me that so many of you are interested in our tours and interested in hearing more about our tours and who we are and what we do. We appreciate you very much. We do this for you. And we will see you back here on June 4th. All right, everybody. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next
Bye.
month.